Hey everybody, it's Mark Pereira here, sitting in my backyard. Let's start walking around a little bit. Gonna give it a few seconds to get people on board here as we travel around the area. I'm gonna give everybody a brief overview of what we've been up to, what we've been putting these rituals together. It's been a lot of work, a lot of research, a lot of trying to, hey, how's it going, buddy? A lot of trying to, piece things together and figure out how to make this as accurate as possible, but we're working through it. I mean, I really thought when I hit the rites of passage that I was gonna be hitting too many stumbling blocks and that I might have to figure out a different direction, but I was able to push through it and figure out how we were gonna make it work and all that stuff. And I'm working on the funerals right now, so that's the last part of it, obviously, right? So, we're just trying to get all of the information put together, and then I'll start editing it and all that stuff. But we have some really good stuff. I mean, there's another section after the rites of passage. We're going to go into Galder, and then we're going to go into priestly rituals and stuff, because we found a few of those. So just a lot of cool stuff, a lot of great stuff coming up on the horizon. I'm hoping having this book published within the next 5-6 months, something like that. All right, so today I want to talk to everybody about strong versus weak religion. And I think this is a very important thing for us to understand, all right? And I want to start explaining the difference between the two by going into an analogy on basically what it would be like if you were taking a martial art, okay? So take for example, you're going to go into a jiu-jitsu gym and you wanted to learn how to fight jiu-jitsu, and that's what you were going to do. And you go there and you talk to the instructor and you talk to all the people there, and you go for your first class, and they basically tell you that you can do whatever you want, right? And it doesn't matter what you do. You're gonna go fight with these people, and they'll just kind of watch and check it out and all that stuff. And then when they get done, they'll determine whether or not you're doing good or something, right? Now, would you consider that a good jiu-jitsu gym or a bad jiu-jitsu gym, right? I mean, most people would think that's a joke. That's pathetic. Like, you're just going to let me roll on the ground with people and not teach me anything. You're not going to give me any rules or standards or any kind of structure at all. I just go in and do whatever I want, And that's really the difference between, something that's weak and something that's strong. Something that's strong has rules and structure and discipline and asks you to give something of yourself, right? Ask you to make a sacrifice of yourself, that you have to give something to the faith, that you have to give your life to it, and you have to dedicate yourself to it, and you have to understand that there are going to be things that you have to do in accordance with your behavior and in accordance with how you view the world and in accordance with how you view the gods. And the idea that you just come in and get to make the religion what you want, that's weak religion, right? Because how strong is a religion? I mean, how strong would you see a jiu-jitsu instructor if you just went in there and just told him what you're going to do, right? You just go in there, well, this is what I want to do, so this is what I'm going to do, and I don't care what you say, and blah, blah, blah. And if he was like, oh, okay, well, whatever you want, you do what you want, and that's fine. Like, you wouldn't see that as a strong instructor. You'd see him as a doormat, somebody you could walk all over, right? And you could treat however you wanted to. And that's how a lot of people try to view religion in the modern world. They view it as something that they want it to be, rather than something that it is, something that they have to mold their life to, rather than the other way around, right? And so there's all these excuses, all these games that people play, all these things that they say. They're like, oh, no, well, this source here isn't exactly reliable, so that means I can do whatever I want. Or these tribes had different traditions, so I can do whatever I want. Everything is always like, take an inch, get a mile. And it's like, the idea that you're going to take something and make it what you want is a weak religion. It's not trying to conform to something. It's not trying to build your life around something. And I understand, like, in the modern world, man, we're coming off, we have history books and we've seen, a lot of things in the past, and we're coming out of we're kind of in the post-Christian era. So everybody's like, man, I don't want to live like that. I don't want those people, I don't want to ever have anything like that over my head. All the horrible stuff that you've heard about people, with crusades and just, even just like in the 50s and stuff like that, when people were censoring everything everybody did and all that stuff. And, you know, it's just like, I understand that people don't want to live like that. They don't want to have people dictating every single thing, every single move that they make. And that in itself is like the extremes of strong religion. And so that's how we can really kind of figure out where we're at on this, by looking at the extremes. So when you look at the extreme Abrahamic religions, you know, there's 15 million rules. Everything dictates everything that you do in your life, and everything is trying to always see if you can please this God so he doesn't throw you into this fiery pit, right? And there's very much a fear basis to it, and you know, a sort of a fatherly worship, abusive father kind of concept to it. I mean, it's the idea that everything you're doing is trying to make your way into this place so you don't get the bad place, you know, and that it becomes the central focus of the entire religion. And that's not really what our faith is, you know. And if you talk to Christians, I mean, most Christians will tell you that the stuff that we're talking about and the things that we go into is very much against Christianity. Like they really hate it because it's called religions of works, right? And that's one of our religion would be considered one of works, because we have a set of morals, a set of values, the 9 needs, right? That can be proven in the sources, and it's part of the faith, and it gives the religion a moral and eschatological structure that provides people with discipline and an understanding of what the worst things you can do are, right? And Christians don't believe that. They believe that, you know, that the law, I mean, you follow the law to obey their God, but not to get into heaven. The get into heaven part is just based on grace. And that's what they believe. And they'll tell you that, right? It's very much, that's a part of it. And so like concepts like atonement and things like that, that's not really a part of their faith, because Jesus died for their sins, and he washes it away, and all you have to do is go through him and all that stuff, right? Well, our religion is very much one of works. We believe in action and reaction. We believe in doing good and living a good life in order to have rewards in the afterlife, right? Very much a religion of works, and Christianity would not be good with that, and never was good with that, all right? But the thing is that when you're talking about strong religion versus weak religion, you're talking about, you know, ideas of trying to build something that betters your life, right? Then you have to understand that there is going to be some structure to it. There is going to be some sort of discipline. And the problem that I've seen over the years is that people have sort of been in this mad rush to get members. You know, we want to grow. I mean, I get that. I understand it. We want to grow as a community. We want to grow as a faith. We want people to come to the bloats. We want to have large gatherings. We want to have, you know, things where we see us comparable to the other religions, with hofs and with grounds and with, you know, burial plots and all those things. I get that. I want that too. You know, these are all things that I want to see us have. These are all things that I believe that we should have, that we deserve to have, right? But the thing is that we can't sacrifice the religion for that. We can't sacrifice the core values and core principles just to get people at the table, right? And I say that because I've heard people, I've talked to people, and I've asked them, you know, look, man, I mean, we're just here to try to explain to you what the religion was, you know? And then people will come to us and be, oh, well, you can't say stuff like that, because then people will get upset and they might not like it, and then they'll leave, and we can't let people leave and all that stuff. And it's like, well, it's at some point, like, what do you stand on? What grounds do you stand on? What do you stand for? Where's the line where you're like, no, we're not going to do that, you know? And I'm talking about in a religious sense, because so many times it's always like, well, the political stuff that I'm into, that's where the line's drawn. Don't violate my politics, and then that's when I'll get mad if you do that. But the religious stuff, just do whatever you want, you know. And that's what it's boiled down to. And that has come from, you know, 70s counterculture, a lot of the books that were written back then, these pamphlets that were passed around. I mean, you know, and I'm not knocking anybody for using that stuff, man. I used that stuff for years. That was the foundation of me getting into all of this, me becoming part of those groups. I joined some of these groups. I had subscriptions to every single magazine they had out there. I was corresponding with them, friends with them, you know, and still am, for a lot of them, you know. But at some point, we have to evolve. At some point, we have to realize that, hey, man, we can't just be stuck in the 70s, because we have to admit to ourselves in our own hearts that, you know, we just didn't know a lot back then. And even academics wasn't even all that great back then with all this stuff, you know? It's like, it's okay to just say, hey, you know, we just didn't have a lot back then, and it's time for us to grow up. It's time for us to evolve. It's time to move past weak religion, you know? And so, like, we looked at a second ago, the hard religions, the extreme of hard religions, where you're being dictated every single move that you make. But let's look at the opposite extreme, the soft religions, the weak religions. I think probably the one we would probably think the most weak would be Wicca, right? Because it's pretty much just do whatever you want. It's an archetypist cult that's pretty much atheist. It just molds itself to certain political ideas and beliefs, and you can do whatever you want to in it. You can navigate through it and make it whatever you want. You can syncretize here. You can pull things from this, that, and the other, and just do whatever you want with it. And it has nothing, it asks nothing of you, right? And if you want something, you just cast a spell or whatever, and life is good, you know. If you like this God or that God, pull from all of this different stuff, make it what you want to do, and that's what it becomes. And then it attracts like some of the worst degenerates in our society. You see them all the time on, you know, on their programs or whatever, doing their thing, and you're like, you know, I don't want to be a part of that. That's because it's not anything. It has nothing to do with anything. It doesn't provide you with a tradition, right? And so all we have done with our work at the Northern Society, all we have ever done is try to build up that tradition, you know. And the thing is that people have accused us in the past. They've tried to accuse us of trying to tell people what to do. We're here to tell you what to do, tell you that what you're doing is wrong, right? But at no time have I ever said that to anybody. At no time have I ever said, you're wrong, you're a bad person, you should be cast out, you're just horrible, blah, blah, blah. Never have I said that. But and in many, many cases, have been told that I am wrong for doing what I'm doing. That we should follow the pamphlets of the 70s, and we should follow these cults of personality that these people have developed, and the work that I'm doing is ridiculous and stupid and should just be ignored. I have been told that a whole bunch of times, and I've never said that to anybody, right? Now, I've tried to tell people accurate information, and I've tried to tell people what's inaccurate, and I've tried to give people a platform to try to discuss, you know, what was back then, and then how can we apply that today? How can we rebuild this religion? And the main thing was just to get past the excuses. You know, all these excuses that the sources were too Christianized, or the sources, there wasn't enough material, or we didn't have this, we didn't have that. And I think we proved, you know, unequivocally that we could rebuild it, and it wasn't all Christianized, and we can demonstrate it, you know, and we can show that it was a strong religion, that it wasn't weak. And it's so funny because you have all these people for years who've, you know, they post these pictures of super strong Vikings with big muscles, and they got beards, and they got the helmets and the swords, and they're ready to go fight, blah, 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 and victory over Valhalla, and all that stuff. And then you ask them what their religion is, and it's literally the weakest religion you can imagine. It's just weak. It's like, well, it's whatever you want, you know. It's the jiu-jitsu instructors. Just do whatever you want. Just roll on the ground, and you'll be doing jiu-jitsu. Good for you. Here's a black belt, you know. And that's what it is. It's people giving themselves black belts and saying that they're the guy, you know. They're the authority. They control it. They get to say what it is, you know. And it doesn't work like that. It just doesn't. And you know, when you actually, and I've told people, I'm not just looking over 10th century manuscripts, you know, looking into little obscure texts and all that stuff. I look at ethnic religions today and how they function and how they work and how things that they do can correspond to things that we do. And I talk to those people, and I've met them, and I've gone to their festivals, and I've done things with them, and I've experienced their religion, and I've gone to their shrines, and I've done all kinds of stuff with these people so that I can experience what they're doing and see if these things are true. See if these things are true, that, you know, the polytheist religions don't have any devotion, that they aren't devout, that it's just something you could learn in 6 weeks and then you're a high priest or whatever, you know, and it's just not true. It just isn't in any of them, you know. So we would have to believe that this religion is the only religion in the world that is like this. It's literally would have to be the only traditional faith ever to exist on planet Earth like this, where you just do what you want, or you just you live by your feelings, You build your ceremonies around your feelings. Your connection to the gods is all that matters, you know, and stuff like that. And that stuff is not, that's not how it works. I mean, the gods gave us a tradition. They gave us one. It says it in Ríkstula, where Heimdall came down and gave us the Ivan-runer and Aldaruner, right? And the Ivan-runer are the runes of earthly life. That's the rituals. That's the law. That's the faith. That's true, right? And this religion, this faith, the laws and habits and customs and the ideas of the belief that is fornsidr, right? These are from the gods. They come to us from the gods. We are told that they come from the gods. And we can't just ignore that. Just be like, no, we're gonna just throw it out in the trash and do what we want. You know, we're gonna throw it in the trash and then we'll follow these pamphlets and that's our religion and that's all that matters. You know, and I mean, that's fine. If you wanna do that, it's okay that you do that. Like, I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not here to tell people how to run their groups. I'm not here to tell people what to believe. I'm not here to tell you that I can dictate to you anything, right? But what I can do is I can call it out when people are saying that stuff like that is ancestral religion, because it's not. You know, the only thing that's ancestral about it are the names of the gods. Everything else is just ignoring that ancestral tradition, turning your back on it and saying none of that matters. Because when we build this stuff and we're creating it and we just invent things, you know, out of our heads and say, that's it, you know, and then, well, because we've been doing it for a while, then that's all that matters, then you're just ignoring thousands of years of tradition. And we can see this. You know, we can see that our ancestors, they lived by this tradition for thousands of years. You know, you see traditions that existed in Tacitus's time mentioned all the way in the 10th century sagas. And you see that they had strong religion. You know, you see it when Hjalti Skeggison gets outlawed for blasphemy. They had blasphemy laws, right? You see it in Tacitus when, you know, adultery would get treated, the man would get murdered or killed, he would get executed, and a woman would get dragged by her hair, her head shaved off, she'd be dragged naked and beaten and told she could never have a husband again. I'm not saying we would do that. I'm just saying that this was not soft religion. It was not weak. You know, I'm saying that these people, they had standards and they demanded through their culture that these things were upheld, right? And, you know, we obviously know that things change throughout time and we have different evolutions, but those things took place in the lore too. For instance, you had the tradition of blood revenge that lasted for a very long time, right? And blood revenge was a big deal and was considered holy by the gods. But at some point they realized that this concept of blood revenge needed to evolve and become weregild, right? So you wouldn't just go around just, you know, because it was just family kills family and then they kill them and they kill them and it just never end, a never ending cycle of bloodshed and people dying. And they realized, hey, like, if we want to, you know, have some civility here, we're going to have to come up with something else, you know? So there definitely is an evolution to it. But that doesn't say negate the concept of it. It's still, you're still like demanding justice for your kinsman. You're just not killing another person to do it, right? And so like today, you'd still uphold laws of adultery and say like, hey, don't cheat on your spouse. Don't do that stuff. And there should be repercussions for that. But obviously we're not gonna be shaving women's heads and beating them down the street, you know? So there are ways to express the religion in the modern world. And there are ways for us to look at this religion in the modern world. And that doesn't mean that we throw the baby out with the bathwater whenever we see something we don't like, you know? And so we try to research these traditions and try to understand them and try to critique them and try to look at the ins and outs of all of this stuff so that we can gain a better understanding of the faith as a whole. See, a lot of people ask us when we're talking about reconstructing, they'll ask us the question, you know, well, what era are you trying to reconstruct? Are you trying to reconstruct the 5th century or the 10th century or this century, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, I'm trying to reconstruct the chain. There was a chain of religion that existed for thousands of years. And that chain got cut by a religion that came in and outlawed these people's faith. And I've been looking over the laws, the Christian laws, like in Gragos and other law codes. And like, I mean, they straight up just banned it. You know, if you practice this stuff, you're gonna get outlawed. They even had a law that said if you went into a berserker rage, you would be outlawed. And being outlawed back then was like going to prison. It was being cut off from your family and separated from the country. you know. So it was like, basically, you're gonna go to prison for this, okay? For going into a berserker rage. This is what they did. And so they outlawed these things. They cut us off from the chain, and it's up for us to rebuild that chain, to reconstruct it, to reforge it so that it continues. It's not the idea that we're going to go back into the past. That's ridiculous. And I've spoken against that many, many times. It's the idea that we're going to reforge the chain so that we can go into the future with our traditions intact, by looking at them all and understanding it, seeing the pattern in the sources, finding out the information, building upon it, building our, you know, our hofs and our traditions and our priesthood and everything around it, right? In a way that takes a lot of hard work, and it takes a lot of discipline, and it's gonna ask you of things. It's gonna ask things of you, right? And you're just gonna have to live with that. And it's like, if you can't live with that, then you're just a weak-minded person. And that's just that. You know, it's not me asking things of you. It's the religion asking things from you. It's the sources. It's the gods. It's the traditions that the gods laid down, the Ivan Runer and Alderuner. It asks of you. It asks you to sacrifice yourself. It asks you to give yourself to the religion and give yourself to the gods. And if you can't do that, then that's fine. You know, but don't try to pretend like you're connecting to the ancestors or you're trying to connect to any sort of tradition. Just admit that you're a New Ager, that you just want to have a New Age cult of personality, and that's what you're out to do, and you don't care about the ancient traditions, you know, and that's fine. Don't care about them, you know, but I do, and I know a lot of people who do, and I know a lot of people who want strong religion and know this is a strong religion and not a weak religion, right? And that they want to rebuild this and reconstruct it because it betters their lives. It makes them want to be better people. It gives them stronger relationships. It gives them a sense of integrity and honor, and helps them to build something that's profound in their life, beyond just their politics, beyond modernism, beyond the hate that goes on between left and right or black and white or all these different things. It's about having a religious standard. You know, I mean, you look at the universalist versus folkish argument, right? And because none of these people stepped back and said, hey, why don't we build the religion? They literally have been stuck in the mud arguing over a membership requirement for the past 30, 40 years. Just a never-ending fight over membership requirements. I don't like your membership requirements. Well, I don't like yours. I don't like yours. You're a bad person. Well, you're a bad person. Blah, 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 blah. Never end, back and forth. And it's like, we don't even talk about that stuff. Our membership requirements are ours. You don't like them? Oh, well, you know. What we're doing is rebuilding the religion, and that's it. And we're trying to establish religious assertions and religious ideas and philosophies, eschatologies, cosmology, the whole gamut of everything that makes a religion, and not just like the touchy-feels. Whatever I feel is good is good. I just feel like it should be this. I just feel this. I feel it. And it's like, I was telling somebody the other day, if it's all just about your feelings and what you feel, then, you know, you can use that same argument for having transgender people at your bloats, because all their stuff is just about their feelings, right? It's what they feel. And how are your feelings more valid than theirs? Oh, you can't have that. Why can't you have that? You know, because you have this idea in your head that, you know, that your politics that's where you draw the line, right? Oh, it's the politics. That's what keeps those people, not your religion, not anything that has to do with this faith, but your politics keeps that in line, right? And it's like, no, when you establish a solid foundation with the religion and understand that the religion has its foundation in the gods, in the divine itself, then you make those arguments. And this is why this isn't going to happen. And this is why we're not going to allow this. Because this is the tradition of our ancestors. This is our faith. This is our strong religion, not our weak religion, right? And so that's what that's about. And that's how you build up your folk. That's how you build up your tradition. And you give them something solid to stand upon, something that they can pass on to their children and their children's children, and so on and so forth, you know. And that's how we have to do this. And you know, I just think that our faith deserves this. I think our ancestors deserve it. You know, I've always been very inspired by the story of Raoul the Strong, right? Because here was a guy who stood before King Olaf, and, you know, he was basically told, you know, after they killed his family and killed all of his slaves and burned his farm to the ground and all this stuff, They told him, well, you know, you can get another family. I'll give you some slaves. I'll let you grow your farm back. I'll become your friend. You can get all kinds of money from me. All you have to do is convert to Christianity, right? And he uttered many blasphemies and said, no way. Heart religion, not weak. How I see it. And I think that strength comes to us through the gods. And we can see it in their stories and in the sources. You know, I think of, like I mentioned the blasphemy law. There was another one, I think it's in Landnoma book, where it talks about a sacred area, right? And you're not supposed to use the bathroom on a sacred area. They had what they called a dirt scary, which is an area that was cordoned off just for using the bathroom. And they had a guy who used the bathroom on the sacred grounds, and they killed him right then, killed him on the spot. And then tore down the Hof and rebuilt it elsewhere because it had been desecrated. That's strong religion. You know, how many people would do that? You know, how many people would know that? You know, and so this is the stuff we try to teach people so that we can rebuild our strong religion and have these things that we say, no, you can't do this. You can't use the bathroom on the top because that's blood, period. You know, and you can see this in their stories. It makes me think of, and when Balder dies, right? There's a dwarf that comes running across his pyre, and Thor kicks him into the pyre and lets him burn up. Probably because he felt like him running across there while they were doing a ceremony or something was disrespectful, and he was really mad because Balder was dead, and he kicked him in there, desecrated it, and so he burned him for it. You know, it's like that's a religion that's not just like do whatever you want. You know, that's a faith where it's like you're gonna be reverent, anything less. And when people tell you that they will put up with anything and you can do whatever you want to, sometimes you got to question the motives of that, you know? So, all right. So I'm being told that I keep losing audio. I apologize for that. I'm gonna try to, if it's a big problem, I can redo this later, but we'll just keep going to show people the best ways that we can do this. We're always going to try to tell you the truth and be honest with our work, and we're just going to keep pushing forward. All right, everybody have a good night.